They arrived determined to make a better life for themselves and their children in a strange new place. Some had worked in then smelt furnaces, others had been agricultural workers, some had lived in large towns and cities. They were a part of the great migration of thousands of African Americans from the South to the northern states, mainly between 1916 and 1923. They were drawn to Newcomerstown primarily for work available at J.B. Clow Sons. You know, when I reflect on this, what I just read to you, it really amazes me, and I'm so proud of the history of my ancestors that came north. My family came from Rockburn, Alabama, on the Dansby side, and on the Clayton side, they came from Talladega, Alabama, to Newcomerstown for work. During that time, things were very difficult. If you can just imagine those people as they were packing their bags, carrying luggage, saying goodbye to loved ones, getting that last hug. Maybe a tear was falling from the people that were having to stay behind. And maybe some of them, it was the last time they saw their grandparent or great-grandparent. But they all decided to come north, dragging their kids, you know, taking a step, smelling the train and the atmosphere of what was happening, and taking their first step into a new world by coming to Newcomerstown for new jobs. I think it's amazing. I'm so proud of the history of what my ancestors did to come to Newcomerstown, because a lot of the experiences I have now I would have never had. So let's take a look. I think this is forward.
Well, I don't know. All right. So, let's see here. All right. So can I do it here for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there it is.
Okay. All right, we're good. Okay, so how this all came to being that Newcomerstown was able to get the Clow factory was that at first the Clow factory was purchased an old foundry in New Philly back in 1892. Well, they only were able to manufacture a little bit until the time came that it caught on fire. So the Clows were a big manufacturer of iron ore. So at that time, when their foundry burned down, the citizens of Newcomerstown, I don't know how they did it, but they decided to donate 20 acres and $30,000 to be able to get it rolling. So the Clow factory was up and going. They supplied the goods for the community. It was really something to see it. And it was the first manufacturing company in Newcomerstown, the Clow foundry. First manufacturer, and a lot of good things started to happen there. They hired lots of people. Let me go on to number 3. Okay, about the products of manufacturing, we have a statement that says, workers from all walks of life. As the workers came in to get jobs for Clow, they hired from all different kinds of walks of life. These guys were all just brothers, you know, and working together to supply products for Clow. They had cast iron fittings, pipe fittings, plumbers, supplies, streams of water radiators, and heatings for buildings. One of the things I later found out is that they also had a government contract which they supplied bomb plugs. Did anybody know that? That they, yeah, for World War II. So that was kind of special. In the manufacturing, the Clow Company produced 3-inch diameters iron piping, a 50-inch diameter piping, and some of the pipes weighed between 150 and 14,000 pounds. They first cast their first piping in February of 1896. The various jobs that they had at Clow were anywhere from foundry, pattern shops, blacksmith shops, machine shops, and electrical departments. I guess you're asking, why would somebody want to work at Clow's? Okay. The reason why is because some of the benefits that they had were just wonderful. Clow's had insurance benefits, which are very attractive. 500 and 1,000 based on the limit of service that you had. They were one of the first companies in town to have profit sharing. If you made a 2 or 5% investment, the company would give you that back at the end of the year. They did an annual investment. One thing that was different about Clow, being a big manufacturer, is that they had their own health center. Anybody know that? They had their own physicians, dentists, and nurses. This is back in 1917. I didn't even know that, and I grew up in the neighborhood most of the time. Also about the area is that they had many different immigrants that also worked at Clow's that were recently imported. The African American culture, as I said, came from Rockland, Alabama, and many other states. They were a large manufacturer. They were bigger than the new filling plant, much bigger. Gas room radiators also is where the current Kurt's Cash is. They produce those. So it was a very growing area. You can see some of the guys here. That's a cousin of mine in the upright. That's Mr. Dolphus Newby. But they all had their jobs and they were really into what they were doing. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. As Clouds began to grow and grow, one thing that was different about them is that they were really conscious about what they needed. So here, what you see is that they decided that they need to build more houses. So what they did was across the street from the actual Clow factory, it was called the Hollow. So they decided they need to build houses for all the people they were importing to the north. So they decided to take, manufacturing waste and to build up that area to make it what it is called now, Clow Avenue. So, which was great, and it's a great place to live. Clow was also instrumental in having their own workers buy their own houses. You couldn't buy a Clow house, but you had to buy. They helped you to purchase a house, otherwise in Newcomerstown and in the area, which was very good. They offered 10% down on the purchase price, and they had an interest rate of 6%. They would go ahead and purchase the house, but they expected you to use part of your paycheck to save it to make the first payment. So they would do anything to help you make arrangements to do this, which is very nice, I think, for a community like that. About the Clow houses, in the 1920s and 30s, these houses were built. The houses came with hand pump. They had coal or wood heating. They had outhouses as toilets. They had then tubs and kitchens for the kitchen. You had a choice of electric or kerosene for your lighting. And most people chose kerosene. I think that's what they were used to in the South more than anything else. So that was a real seller for them. Also, being that most of the houses did not have toilets, in 1928, the Clow Company started to put sewer and water and sewer lines into these houses and indoor plumbing. But what stopped them was the Depression. The Depression was really tough on a lot of people. So they weren't able to do all the things that they wanted to do. So they had to stop the sewer line and water line. And a lot of that stuff didn't get resolved to them finishing those houses until 1950. That was a long time for people to go without, you know, they're using outhouses, of course, but to not have sewer and water lines. Very difficult. Next slide. You see here, new jobs and new life. Recruiting was a big thing of the Clow Sons family. You see the guys here working. So they recruited a lot of people from many southern states. Before people had housing, they also had to stay with relatives and friends. So as they started getting the houses together and their lives together, there were so many people that were employed by Clow that a lot of people that came from the South, like Rockland, Alabama, where my family came from, there was a company called the Gavin Company they worked for. They decided that, hey, Mr. Gavin said, this isn't right. So he tried to file a lawsuit against Clow, and they lost. Couldn't do anything about all the people coming up from the north. And Clow was the type of place too, they had many other plants besides just the one in Newcomerstown. They had plants in Chicago, Coshocton, Oskaloosa, Birmingham. I'm surprised that they put even a Birmingham plant that was even after, you know, they had the Newcomerstown plant. One thing about Clow's that was different, next slide. It was hot and dirty work. Hot and dirty work. They had many of the foundries. There are two gentlemen from the drive here. One's Mr. Jasper McCall, that's O.C. Dansby in the other picture on the left. But it was hot and dirty work, very much so. It's just a tough time. The one thing about the Clow Company was that they were always concerned about safety. Back in 1947, they won the National Safety Award. You know, and that was not unlike Clow because they're historically recognized for their safety with their company. My grandfather worked for Clow. My great-grandfather was from Talladega, Alabama. And I know they weren't always perfect because my great-grandfather lost a leg working for the Clow Company. One of the big pipes fell on his leg, and that was it. Next one. Dedication. You found that most of the men were very dedicated to their work. They really worked hard. They wanted their families to stay up north, and a lot of the men were also saving money for the family they wanted to bring from the south to north. There wasn't much missing of work at the company at all. You know, they're very dedicated people. Next slide. The Clow Company showed a great appreciation. The Clow workers enjoyed awards and families and activities. This went on quite a bit. There were a lot of nice things that the Clow did as far as service awards. There was work appreciation dinners. They had holiday celebrations and parties. Often they had different gifts with their celebrations that they did for the workers and their families. So this has turned out a great place to work for many people. And next slide. As I said, celebration work, celebration, a fine dinner, happy to work, resulted in happiness and a growing family. As they say, you know, happy wife, happy life. That's what they were experiencing there. You know, just the happiness just kind of went throughout the community. The kids were happy. Fathers could buy things for their kids. It was such a tough adjustment for these people because not only did they move into new houses and new living locations, but they also had to buy their own furniture and all the other necessities that they needed. It wasn't an easy road at all. Next slide. After work activities. They weren't too bored. I wouldn't say so at all. What you see here in the picture on the left is the Clow offices. The Clow offices had a dance hall in the bottom, and on top they had a meeting room. And what happened often was that the community on Clow Avenue would have a lot of dances over the weekends. They'd have a really good time. You know, so it was a meeting room, and also if they had like a club, they could meet upstairs. But this building still exists. It's part of Coach Cash's office. And on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, that was once a Clow building that built steam radiators, gas radiators, and that's Coach Cash. So a lot of rich history with this. Next slide. Baseball team. So Clow's actually had a baseball team. And I think they were okay, but I did find out that one of their managers was Cy Young. You guys know who Cy Young is? Yeah, so he was one of the managers. I think a lot of the guys played ball to relieve stress off their mind. It was just a good time to be together. They were in a battle too, whether you're white, black, or whatever. It was a battle to move ahead in life. So they worked together. They didn't have many African American players on the team, but I did read at one point where the team got together. There was a guy on Clow Avenue that had died from pneumonia, so they had a fundraiser for him, and they gave the money to that family.
The gentleman sitting right out front appears to be African American.
Yeah, I said they had minimal.
Oh, one, okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I missed that.
just one. So they had many, but their hearts were still with the guys that they worked with. Like you said, they did have a fundraiser for this gentleman that had died, and they gave the money to his wife. So those are some of the good things that were happening. Next. Settling in. That was my great-grandmother, here on the right, on the Dansby side. My great-grandmother. As people started to settle in, they started thinking of different businesses and what they could do besides just working at Clow's. A lot of ladies who were doing their own thing, kids were naturally playing, getting ready to, they were trying to learn different families and different playmates. But at this time, like I said, things were starting to settle. They were getting their vibe on a little bit, which is a good thing. Next one. Sorry, I wanted to be running there. There you go. Okay, family adjustments. A lot of family adjustments. During this time, people were trying to get their quarters in order where they lived. They were still trying to buy for minimal things. You know, they had to buy clothing and all kinds of things to make their life comfortable like they had down south. Many of them didn't want to be back down south because not only were they fighting having employment, but they came north also to dodge Jim Crow. That was so prevalent down there. I know during the time when I had met some of the older people, they were telling me about some of the struggles they had with Jim Crow. And they were glad to be north, you know, to seek a better life. But at this time of settling in, also you had good things starting to happen as far as people cleaning, people sharing those good old recipes, you know, that you hear about, the soul food. You know, if you remember, like, blackberry slimmer was one of my favorites that my grandmother made. And all it was blackberry with dumplings, but it was delicious. And some of you probably have heard of cornbread with crackling in it. And you may have heard of chitlins, for sure. A good southern dish my grandmother used to make was fried pies. It's like dried fruit with pie filling. Of course, you can't forget about the wonderful fried chicken. Tripe, if you know what that is. Neck bones and potatoes. You know, those are some of the good recipes that were shared throughout the community. Just a good time of fellowship and people getting to know each other. Next one. Oh, and this picture is one of the ladies that lived on the drive. And the picture on the right here is Mr. Willie Stearns when he was a young man. I don't know if you guys know that name, but he was very instrumental in things that happened on the drive. Next. Farm-like lives. You'll find that a lot of people on the drive, they had a garden, they had mixed vegetable garden. There's pigs, chickens, goats, cows, horses. I know they had chickens because when they were people, I can think of the time when my dad, he took us all to Colorado and I had a pet chicken. And so when I got back home from Colorado with my dad, all three of us kids, I said, well, where's my rooster? He said, well, he tried to get into the car with you when you were leaving. That wasn't true. Come to find out that they butchered him. They butchered him. Yeah, I said, why? Why my rooster? But you'll find out that during this time, people had different foods to eat. There's also many gardens. I know my great-grandfather, Jesse Clayton, he had a big garden. And during the Depression, many people had to rely on each other just to survive to get through, because it was really tough. I remember my grandmother telling me stories about how tough it was. And some people on the drive didn't have gardens, so they had to support each other to get through that Depression time. Okay, next. Raising a family. Tough time. Again, a lot of people miss their loved ones. People in my family, grandmother and my grandfather Otis Dansby Sr. used to tell me about missing different people that he knew, friends. You know, sometimes people would even miss pets that they couldn't bring north. You know, but it was a tough time. And not only was Clow Avenue was primarily African American, but there were other nationalities on the drive. There were American Indians, were the Kings, the Italians were the Lenzos, the Dunbars and Yenis were Hungarian. There's always a variety of food and languages going up and down the Clow Avenue street. A lot of those relationships created generations of friendships that still are going on today. You know, it was just something else. Now, the Lenzos had the bar at the end of the street, and it's kind of unusual, but on one side, the African Americans could go. On the other side, the Caucasians could go. And I think that lasted till probably up until the bar was there till like the mid-70s. But people respected that, you know, didn't have a problem with it, but it seems kind of weird today. But it's just something that you had to respect during the time. And it wasn't any animosity. We loved the Lenzos, and they were our friends, but that's just the way it was back then. Next slide. Commitment to community. You found out that there's a lot of good Southern morals that came from the South. A lot of men from the South seek to carry on that tradition of understanding, like these guys dressing sharp, taking care of yourself, doing the right thing. They wanted all this to boil over into the kids. As you see in the background, there's a few Clow houses. I think there's one or two of those that are still in existence, the one that's in the middle. But yeah, that's the way it was. Next. Thing about migrating north was the fact that you could create a new dream. You didn't have to stay the same as you were. There's a lot of guys that had some big dreams of what they wanted to do and how they wanted to live. And so this gentleman here, his name was Howard Little. And I guess he was always a sharp dresser and had big ideas and things he wanted to do. So that was the great thing about moving from the South. You have no idea. Those are some of the houses that are in the background. Okay, move forward. Friendship. Naturally, coming north, a lot of kids didn't grow up in the same neighborhood as they were down south. They met new friends, which was, really unique for them. If you read some of the names up there, there's a lot of newbies. Some people that you may know if you grew up in Newcomerstown, but there are a lot of great families down there. There were the Collinses, the Dansbys, the Harris, the Russells, the Newbies, the McCalls. A few older names were the Drapers, the Brooks, Cokers, Passmores, the Littles, and the Halls. I haven't mentioned them all, but those are just some of the families that created new friendships as they migrated up. Next slide. Migrating up also created a fresh new way to express yourself. Like the gentleman on the right here, he was a little, always, some people wanted to get their swag on a little bit, as they say nowadays. And they had an opportunity to do that, by their dress and how they carried themselves. On the left here is Raymond Dansby. Some of you from Newcomerstown might have remembered him, but he's always a sharp dresser. He had a real nice swag about him. Good guy. Move forward. I think that photo speaks for itself. Mama don't take no mess. So, for a lot of the mothers moving north, it was really difficult because they had kids. Some of them had large families. How do you keep track of all these kids? You come to Newcomerstown, there's an uptown, you have different stores and places where kids can go and hang out. You have the fields that were below the drive where they can hang out down there. So it's hard for them to keep them intact, so they did it pretty good. There was a lot of different other neighborhood parents that helped out too. There are other activities that could go into. Back in 1919, they had the Colored Boy Scouts, which is out too, on the drive. So these are all good things. The moms didn't pull out their hair, but they made it through it. Next slide. This kind of speaks for itself, the title. You're right. There's a lot of times when black women had to get that trust back in people that they knew. You're moving to a new neighborhood. You don't know all these people, that you're coming in contact with. But it's all about building trust and having relationships, new trust. You had that special friend that you could tell your special secrets to. That took time. Because like in any neighborhood, there were things going on, and affairs and arguments over men. So you had to build that trust, and that's what these ladies were all about. Shows these two ladies just having a real good friendship time. Next. An evening out on the town. Now, there were different things to do. Of course, people were involved with church. Church was really, really big on Clow Avenue. But people found other things to do too, like someone would go to the other African-American bars in different towns, or someone would go shopping or go to a movie. But I guess what I'm saying, it just wasn't all about work. They had a lot of fun too. Next slide. Sunday stroll. One thing you learn from living on the Clow Avenue was respect. All those parents made their kids be respectful of the elderly. You were always required to help out grass mowing or groceries or whatever it is. And they learned a lot of this from church. I'm not saying everybody on Clow Avenue was perfect, because some of the people in here are teachers, they know. They had their problems too, going through life. But yeah, you had to grow with your community, and they try to get you to do the right thing. Next slide. Out for a walk. One thing about Clow Avenue is that all the houses had porches practically. So when you walked up and down the street, you could always share a nice conversation with someone, with the neighbors. They would tell you your business. If they didn't want you to know their business, they just kept walking and said hi. But that's how you found out a lot that was going on. Who was doing what. Behind you here is, this is called the pool hall. And that happens to be, I think, was Reverend Little and his wife and his family. Our gang has fun. Well, from the look at the first guy in the picture here, that is Mr. Russell. But a lot of these guys are in their 70s and 80s now. Some of these are Collinses, some of them are Harrises. You can see the Collins boys practically, some are Harrises. But your gang is where you got your nickname, you know, guys you hung out with. That's where you got your nickname. You had guys that had strange nicknames, you wonder how they got it. Ask them, they'll tell you. I had a nickname that didn't stick. Thank goodness, with our little group. These guys had fun together, and they got mischief together naturally. As you can see some of the Clow houses in the background. That happens to be my father's car, Otis Jr., back in the day. Next. Okay, so we are looking at relationships here. Now, often people they lived on the Clow Avenue, but sometimes their parents moved away and they would come back. But one thing that you could always find about Clow Avenue, there's always somebody who could welcome you there. You know, there's a lot of friendships. Everybody wanted to know what you were doing, how you were doing, how you progressed in life. Just a good time. That's another Clow house in the background. There kind of towards the middle or end of the street. It's still already existing. But it was a good time. Here we have what we all say, jump in, and that's what a lot of kids did. At the end of the street on Clow Avenue, you have several fields, and then you run into Tuscarawas River. Then there's a place called the Clow Hole. Now, a lot of people on the drive, or Clow Avenue, would jump from the trestle bridge into the water. My grandmother used to do it. She says, "Aren't you going to do it?" I said, "Nope." So it's not that bad. She just take us to the Clow Hole when I was younger to hang out, and that was kind of nice. Next slide. Catch anything? This picture here is, I don't know if you guys remember Reverend George. Some of you who are from the area might remember him. He pastored the Methodist Church on Clow Avenue, which is no longer there. But there are a lot of different stories about the Clow home. There are stories that didn't have a bottom. There were stories about cars driving down at night, and people think they were dumping bodies, mafia bodies, and heard all kinds of crazy stories about them. Heard that there were fish like 7 and 8 feet long. The last story I heard about a month ago was about my dad. I didn't even know the story. Somebody said he got his car stuck in the Clow hole. I was like, you know, he's no longer with us, so I can't ask him the story. But he was single after my parents divorced and they were remarried, so I could imagine. Next slide. Summer fun. We always have a lot of fun in the summertime. There's a lot of things to do. I can tell you those times when we would just be playing popsicle races. What I mean by that is like, if you had a popsicle and it rained, you took that stick, you put it in a double strip, and you tried to see whose popsicle stick went furthest down. I don't know if you guys played that in Dover and Philly. That was a big deal in Newcomerstown. That was a real big deal. You know, everyone played like Huck Finn. It was a good time, you know. Yeah, we had all kinds of games that we played. Red light, green light. You guys know that game? Yeah. Jacks, baseball. You had to get your chores done before you could play ball of any sort. And we'd play, at least my grandmother Frances made you have your chores done. And we also made homemade go-karts. That's when you took wood and paneling, took the wheels of anything you had around, and you raced the guys up the street. Good time. Next. GAM. I say GAM because this lady was instrumental in a lot of people's life. Her name was Ellen Black. But, matter of fact, that's me in that picture on the right. Kevin Brown on the left, my brother Mike. But it's like you found out that these grandmothers, they were all concerned about everything that went on in the community. It was a big deal, you know. They really had the weight on their shoulders. This picture was slightly taken after something earth-shattering happened in Newcomerstown, and that's when the Clow Founders closed. And in March of 1956, they did close. It was very shattering to a lot of people in the drive. It affected 77 out of 85 employees lost their jobs. Reasons why is because operations just was not economical anymore. They tried to get new products to come into Clow, but they just couldn't make things work. And also they were making cast iron pipe using the sand cast method, and that method was becoming obsolete. So that's how they lost. And it got so bad that they didn't even make the radiators anymore, but they were sourcing those out. So it's very trying times for people that worked at Clow's. I know there's a lot of people in my family that had to go north for jobs. Come to find out that 2 of my uncles found jobs in Wadsworth, where I currently live. They would go up for the week and come home on the weekends, but it was different. At one time, Clow had employed, at one time, up to 500 people. Okay, next. Encouraging fathers that helped in the community. You didn't have to be a father, but there's a lot of help. They encourage you in sports and in education. I know by the time I was playing high school sports, a lot of the guys on the drive would attend the games. If you had a bad game, they'd let you know it. Any play you missed or anything, they'd definitely let you know it. This happens to be my father in the middle. That's me in front. My brother, my sister, and a cousin. had a wonderful dad. My parents were divorced at 2, but my mom lived up the street, my dad down the street, but we had all a good relationship. Our grandparents lived across the alley from each other. Couldn't get better than that. Okay, moving on. Something really earth-shattering happened in our community in 1968. The death of Martin Luther King. It was not well taken on Clow Avenue, or in Newcomerstown, as in all. There's a lot of tension, a lot of things that went on. The Black Citizens Council in Newcomerstown, which was mostly from the drive, decided that they wanted to change the name of the street. There were some people that were accepting of that, and some people weren't. A lot of the older people just didn't want it. They said, why are you going to change the name? Why do you want to change the name? But you start to understand that it was all about, what happened to King. I know the tensions that were there. I heard of people that some of the younger guys shut out lights, street lights, because they were upset. Of course, the whole country was upset during that time. Okay, next. Thank you, HUD. Many of the houses on Clow Avenue and now Martin Luther King Drive went through a rebirth in the 70s. These are some of the houses that were falling in. They weren't doing very well at all. A lot of houses were replaced by new houses. There's a lot of grants that happened. It was a good time. The only thing I dislike about this period of time is that the real Clow Avenue had a lot of trees. It was really beautiful. They cut down a lot of the trees during this period. Next. One thing that happened in the 70s, I don't know if some of you know this guy, but that's Montel Collins. He rode motorcycles, but during that period also, there were a lot of guys that rode motorcycles. I don't know what the big attraction was, but they loved them. But they left to run them 12 and 1 o'clock at night, going 70 and 80 miles an hour down the street. We didn't like that too well. But, they were just being them. Okay, also, next slide. Montel was always respectful. 70s and 80s, kids had a lot of fun. They rode bikes, they played in yards. There were several youth centers on Clow Avenue. My grandfather, Otis Dansby Sr., had a youth center for kids and sometimes young adults. It was called the Chatterbox. That place is very, very popular. It drew people from Dover, Philly, Zanesville, all over to dance and just have a good time. And then later in the 70s, they had a place called Scorpios. A lot of kids, they danced, drank pop, ate chips, just had a good time. And Reverend Little, back in the 80s, had a teen house for people where they could hang out. It's nice that those people thought about us, about the youth that were growing up. They wanted to see them do the right thing. Next. Wedding celebrations. It's a big thing in our community. When somebody got married, we're always happy for them, but also we wanted to eat, have a good time. You see in the picture, that's my baby sister Iris, and she got married, and that's Mr. Booker. I don't know if any of you knew Booker Russell. Yeah, very colorful man in the community. Called himself the king of the community and king of Newcomerstown. But it was a fun celebration when we had meetings. Now, one thing about the picture you're looking at now, that's when Clow had all their trees. Just beautiful, beautiful. And a lot of these guys in this picture you see went on to play football, for Newcomerstown, but back then we had a lot of street football. It's like, took the ball, you played from pole to pole, and you played to 100. And you used the lateral method. Young and old played. But some of you guys, it's Maurice Terrence as quarterback, Eric Norris on the right-hand side, Chris Roberts on the other side. I won't go through the rest of them because of time, but we had fun. We played wiffle ball, we had track races. I think that's how Tony Russell got so fast. Always racing my cousin who went to state. He was phenomenal. And Tyrone Simpson. We had a lot of good athletes in that community. Next. What you have here is one thing we were all like a family. Huggy Boy was one of my cousins. I took his photo. We were all about the community, and kids were our mission in the community. That's why I thought that whole Clow Avenue and Martin Luther King Drive together. It's always about the kids. Okay, next slide. We Are Family. I named this We Are Family because back in the 70s when the song came out, Clow Avenue and Martin Luther King Drive was almost like a melting pot of cultures. We shared traditions, we shared love. It was a good time. I remember a lot of the fun we had when the disco dancing and all this stuff came out. And it was just a great time to live there. Next. Shucking and jiving after church. The guys in the picture were always a bunch of characters. Clayton Walker, Darnell Brown, Randy Russell, Tony Russell on the end, my sister Dawn on the other end here, left. We're kids who were raised to go to church, we were raised to be involved in church activities. All the activities that we had involved catching a bus and going to Cedar Point, going to Buckeye Lake, Meyer Lake, Vacation Bible School, which the whole community were involved with. We had a lot of good times. We had holiday programs that kids loved. Kids got dressed up for things, for programs, had new outfits. Kids had new outfits for holidays too. You always tried to dress your best when it was a special day. Moving forward. This broke my heart. This is the Methodist Church, St. Paul African Methodist Episcopal. It fell in 2024. I hated to see that happen because there's more history in that church than you could imagine. In the books and information that was left, I tried to contact their home office in Columbus to try to get them to do something with the church, and nothing ever got done. There's another family that wanted to buy the church to do something with it. Didn't happen, they wouldn't sell it. So, just the way it was, and it was a sad day when that happened. But what else do you do? Okay, moving forward. This is Trinity Baptist Church. Trinity Baptist Church was a church I grew up in when I lived in Newcomerstown. And my heart is still with Trinity Baptist Church because Trinity Baptist Church closed for 7 years. What happened at Trinity Baptist Church was that, first a little history about it. The first church was built in, it's called the African Baptist Church, was organized in 1908 under the supervision of Mr. Lowry. In 1925, that church was destroyed by fire, totally burnt to the ground. So in 1926, the J.B. Clow Sons built the church, built a new church. And the first pastor was Reverend S.A. Anderson. And when they were first done with it, almost done with the church, it was struck by lightning. But it didn't catch fire, so that Reverend S.A. Anderson went north to the association meeting and tried to secure money, funds to fix the church, which it seems like he did. That church had so much life in it when I was a kid. There's so many good dinners, so much praise and worship that went throughout that church. It was just a wonderful experience to be a part of. They had some wonderful pastors too. Sometimes the pastors came from Canton. We had one pastor, I'm sure you know the name when I mention it, Bob Sherrill from the Dover area. His daughter, Misty here. He was there for 25 years. Man had a heart of gold about the Newcomerstown people. We dearly loved him. And a lot of good things happening at that church also. I had several family members that played the organ. My grandmother Frances. Also there was my cousin Shirley. My Aunt Shirley that played. Jim Stearns, who's now a realtor, she played an organ in that church, was involved. In the Vacation Bible School, me and Miss Laura in the 80s and 90s did Bible study and crafts with the kids. She would teach the lesson on how to do the arts and crafts. So now, the church was closed for 7 years, but we're on our way back. We're on our way back. It's a fine thing to say. We now have Reverend Sutton, Rodney Sutton, that I prayed and prayed and prayed several years ago that God would send a man, and boy did he answer my prayers. He's been really instrumental in getting the church back together. The church has a new roof. We're now working on the family center to try to make that happen, raise some money. But things are happening down there, more than what I would expect in such a short amount of time. So we're all behind Reverend Sutton and what he wants to do. A lot of rich history there. Okay, move forward. We come to worship. That was a picture of Reverend Little and people outside the Trinity. Young people that were involved. And the house beside is still there. Yeah, it was all about worship and trying to do the right thing. Next. Who lived where? Legacy. Who lived where? Back when in 2001, we decided to start having different reunions, like once a year, to celebrate the rich history of Clow Avenue. We had some fun things happening. Mr. Willie Stearns said, and Miss Laura Kuma said, hey, why don't we do a history map? You know, who lived where? Then they looked at me as a graphic designer saying, well, what are you starting? But it took a lot of research to put this together, months and months and months trying to figure out who lived where. This map was last updated in 2013. I haven't had time to update it anymore because people are so transient now. Maybe someday I will. But yeah, that's a lot of the heart and soul of people in the drive. There's a lot of love in that community. And I hope you have a lot of love for your community wherever you grew up. The migration happens in a lot of families and a lot of communities all over not in Ohio, just all over the world. But what I challenge you to do is don't forget about where you came from. You know, don't forget about where you came from. Even if you have an hour, 2 hours a year, you can make something happen. Great. I look at my football coach in the back, and he always instilled a lot of good ideas in my mind. I never forget a phrase he said, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I used that when I was teaching in school to tell my students. So things can follow, and you can make a difference. That's all I have to say. Yes.
Do you happen to know the confused about the real history of South Lawn Drive. You know, all the cute little brick bungalows, I've always been told that the Clow executives lived there and they were built for them. I'm actually gonna show one tonight, it's kind of interesting, but
That
anyway,
is-
you know what I'm talking about, the little brick bungalows on South Lawn Drive at the end of Old Main Street that just run across there. I didn't know if you ever had any.
That is true, and I have an article to share.
Uh-huh.
with
I'm
you
curious, I
sometime.
never had a real.
Yeah,
you know,
because they not only built houses on the drive, but the Clow people had a large footprint, large footprint. Back in the day, like I said, they had the power stacks, and when they stopped the foundry, they tore those down. And there were some houses, I found an article, thank you, because of Castile, our historian in Newcomerstown, gave it to me. So there was a lot of things that went on that a lot of people don't know about.
All the
The Clow
bathrooms
Company.
and kitchens.
What's that?
All the bathrooms and kitchens were in the basement,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, even in some of the Clow houses on the drive, there's a couple of kitchens that are in the basement.
Yes.
Yeah.
They've since been modified, most of them, of course.
Well, some people have modified those and moved them upstairs. I know
Yeah,
in our family house, which was 582, that is no longer there, that eventually, when they started out, they had the kitchen in the basement, and then they moved it upstairs. You know, my family first came to Newcomerstown, the Clayton side of the family that came from Talladega, they didn't even live on the drive. They lived on Tuscarawas Avenue. A lot of families had to do that until they got adjusted and, you know, a house came open or they lived with a relative. It's just the way it was. Go ahead, Matt.
I have a question about the initial migration. Your photos show very little integration with the black and the white communities at the time. I'd like to know if you felt isolated in that community. Did any of the employees live in other neighborhoods, in white neighborhoods? Was there room for advancement into management for the Clow employees that were black? And like, were the stores integrated? Did you have to shop? And was there clan activity then? You paint such an almost idyllic picture, which sounds great, but was there a different side to this story?
Yes, there was a different side. Back in the 20s, in the early 20s, you talk about race. Newcomerstown had Klan rallies outside of town. Several. I'm not talking about just one, but big Klan rallies were out of town. And actually, when people came to town from the migration from the South, they still had to watch themselves. They had to use the stores and different things. And there were some people that lived, that when they first came in town, they didn't live on the drive, they lived other places. There were tensions, but you know, a lot of the guys at work, there were tensions too, but they had to learn how to work together. You know,
Were
it
the
was,
schools integrated?
what's that?
The schools
Yes.
were
Yes.
integrated?
Yes.
Because I understand, I'm not from the area, but even in Dover, the schools weren't integrated for much longer than I ever realized. But, so the African-American community attended.
Yeah, the regular public schools. I had pictures of my grandmother in the school, as you know, when she's in grade school. Pictures of my father. You know, it was tough. You know, race was tough back then, but you found out that a lot of people they gelled together. You know, if you didn't get along with somebody, you stayed away from them. You know, but there were people on the drive that my grandma tells me stories of my dad and my uncle having, and she'd feed them like she would anybody else. You know, they called her mother, you know, because of that close relationship. And even with me going through high school in the 70s, I had some guys that my grandma would say, "Don't you have a place to live? Go home." They hung out all the time, every day. But I guess it was kind of what you made it. I won't say that, you know, there weren't tensions, because there were tensions sometimes in schools. you know, you had somebody calling you out your name, and you wanted to take care of business, you know, but just the way it was. So, did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
I worked in the Clow buildings from 1998 to 94, and I was the office and plant manager. And we produced big $1 million dryers, and the company was called Drycon Zycon from Massachusetts.
Huh.
And
That's
they
something I
made
didn't
these
know.
huge dryers that were $1 million.
Yes.
My grandfather worked for Clow's. Big Boy and Little Boy were in my class.
Yeah, I know too well.
And Lenzo's were our best friends. You know.
Yeah. The thing about it, from what I learned from my ancestors, that especially from my grandmother, when they came up from the South and you got a job at Clow's, you stayed there as much as you could because of benefits. Now, some people changed up and they went to work other places naturally. If you didn't show up for work, you got fired. You know, so someone didn't do the right thing. But all in all, the Clow and Sons company was there as a major support. They were the first manufacturer in town, large manufacturer. And they were the first company that had like a group insurance. That didn't exist in Newcomerstown at that time. But it's kind of like the Clow factory came and they made a lot of changes. Prior to that, Newcomerstown was just known as an agricultural center. That's it. So a lot of good things happened, yes.
Okay, so after the plant closed, and you said she worked there, so where did they find employment at? Where did
A lot of people just went to different places to work. It was in the 50s and in 56, they went to Dover. A lot of small towns around the area to find work. Just like a lot of people in my family, they went north. Yeah, back in the 70s, after Clow's, there was other companies that came to town. Eventually, you had General Tire, you had GE, Gruffuld's. One time, man, back in the early late 70s, Newcomerstown was booming with work. You could quit one job and go to another one in town and get hired.
Did you know the name Roger, I think Shyrock, worked in the Clow buildings?
Shyla, do I know
I
her?
think it was Shyrock. He had a part.
I don't think I know that. Yeah, the Clow Avenue people, also, they ventured out, you know. They started their own business. Look at my, Brent Dansby Sr., my grandfather. He started a sanitation business that lasted over 30 years. You know, there were barbershops on the drive. Candy stores, some people would do that to supplement their income. I remember the candy store, you could buy that penny candy. The only thing, if you went there to get a haircut, Mr. White would give you a bowl cut. Just, you know, a lot of guys didn't like that, yes.
I had another question on your diagram there. So I'm sitting here looking that way. So where would the playground be at on the diagram? Where it is now? It's like a cul-de-sac. I'm just trying to imagine. I'm trying to imagine.
The playground at the end of the street?
That's the playground
down here.
area now, the cul-de-sac?
Yeah.
Then show where the church is, Brent.
Where's Trinity?
Trinity is right there.
Right there? Okay. Because I'm trying to picture what it is now. It doesn't look like there was a lot of activity on there.
Well, see, the playground here was just redone in 2024. That started like in 1970 with Paul Simpson. Remember that name? He was a councilman. So my brother, Vincie Russell, and a couple of us guys down those fields below, where Simpson was down here.
So those, where the playground is now, those were houses there.
Not further down here, just at the end where Simpsons lived.
Okay.
Well, us boys, this is an empty field below there. So us boys got these skids. We put them together for a home run fence. And so Paul Simpson came down and he said, "Hey, how would you guys like to have a park down there in playground. So he put things in motion and talked to the mayor at that time and different shakers and movers in town, and that's how that started, with it becoming a park.
But Terry's Pizza Shop, I knew him real well, he was down there, and also the senior center they had built, the senior center. Is
That's
that
not
on
on this-
college?
It's not on that map.
Yeah, this is all.
Yeah,
Clow
that's
Avenue.
state, yeah, okay.
But there's a lot of fun things that happen. Like I said, we had pool hall, different things. You get your hair cut there. You know, like I said, the church were, like Factory Street here,
Oh,
I think had some houses too that were Clow houses,
yeah. Yeah.
but they're no longer there. They got torn down. I do remember those houses that were across from Robert Shaw. They had a few houses that were torn down. I say that because my dad owns that property, so I know what happened to him.
I never lived there, just worked there.
Yeah. Any other questions?
That map that's the same map that's back on the back wall. If you want
Right.
to take a closer look. Right.
But I can remember, you know, myself being a kid, I so greatly, greatly appreciate the people that grew up there. I learned a lot of lessons.
Yeah.
I mean, I always tried to stay on the straight and narrow, but I saw what happened if you didn't. My grandmother would let you know. So, see that pussy willow bush out there? Go get one for me.
Did Clow build 6 or 7 houses down West State Street, like where Baker's grocery store is?
Could have been likely, I'm not exactly sure.
There was like 6 or 7 houses in a row.
Yeah, I remember those houses.
Yeah.
Like I said, they had large footprint of land. And I tell you, it worked out good for Newcomerstown. It really did.
Yeah, I met a lot of nice people there, very
Yeah.
nice.
Who were these Clows? I mean, they started
Oh,
about
I'm sorry, maybe I forgot to tell you that.
1800s.
They were from Chicago, Illinois.
And did they have other industries among before they came to Newcomerstown then, or not?
No, they stayed up there mostly, but they had several factories and plants that they were in charge of. I never understood when they had all the people that moved from Rock Run, those small cities and towns from the south, that they went ahead and later bought a plant down in Birmingham. It kind of baffles me, but I guess they're real aggressive in moving forward.
It may have been because the pay scale could have been lower.
Yeah,
Because my parents, folks and stuff, when they came up from the south, they came up because they could make more money, was one of the things. And one reason why they came up was because during World War I, you know, a lot of the whites were going off to fight wars, and the military wasn't fully integrated, so blacks migrated and took a lot of those jobs. And that's true for not only Newcomerstown, but for Tuscarawas County, you know, very much kindred to growing up like you did in Newcomerstown. And I want to ask you, Wee Little, have you ever met him?
Will?
Yeah, well, Little.
Oh, yeah.
He was a football star at Kent State.
Yeah, I remember.
So that was his father, Mr. Little, that you pointed out to?
No, that's not the same person that was.
That's not the same one?
Tom.
Okay.
No, but I remember Will Little because my dad used to hang out with him all the time.
Yeah, well, I knew your dad also.
Yeah.
I knew your dad.
When Will moved to Kent, my dad would go up and visit him a lot.
Yeah, he was a great,
Yeah, such a great athlete.
yeah.
Didn't you mention Tom Little, the attorney? Tom Little?
No, he wasn't part of that. There was some other the Little family in Newcomerstown, or especially on the drive, were very instrumental in religion and had a lot to do with helping kids to find their direction. You know, Reverend Little was a missionary in Africa for many years, and he came back, I think it was in the early 80s, and he built a home in the corner of the drive, which didn't work out so well for him. It kind of fell in or something, but had some structural problems. But he opened up a youth center and started reaching out to the students, to kids. And his daughter, Laura Little, Laura Okuma, Lauren Little Okuma, lived in Africa. She is still living, matter of fact. And it was her idea to start with the reunions that we have every other week. She says, Brent, let's you and I put something together. You know, we had one down at the park, at the drive, and we got rained out, and food all got wet, and we took it up to the church. So the following year, we started doing something. If we can go to the next slide.
Oh, yeah, sure.
She had me design a logo,
Oh,
which I designed, and
yeah, I've seen that.
that's two people being hugged by one. So we started there with the logo, and we started organizing, trying to find these people, people who had any connection to Clow Avenue. We had people coming as far as California, South Carolina, Georgia, just everywhere. And we do this reunion every couple of years. We'd have t-shirts like we have here, hats. It was just always a nice time to see people you haven't seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, as the years have gone by, we've lost a lot of our older people that were instrumental in our reunions. We still try to do something. I like to think these people right here, Shirley Coker, had a lot to do with writing the story. Mr. Willie Stearns had finished photos. Ms. Laura Kuma, she did a lot of organization. A lot of the information that I shared with you came from J.B. Clow Sons newsletter. Clow's water treatment plant, Newcomerstown News, William Castile, who's a historian. I talked to him about a month ago, and he gave me some information also that I shared with you. And
I remember Shirley Coker.
yeah,
Yeah, she's a very pretty lady. She's a little older than I am.
yeah,
But she passed away about a year or so ago?
she passed away about a year ago.
Yeah.
And Pastor Sutton and I, the family wanted to bring her ashes back, so we had a ceremony for her down at the restaurant.
Back in main building at the church.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
memorial service for her, yeah. She was a very, very nice lady.
There are a lot of wonderful people that grew up on the drive, and I love them all.
Yeah. You know, the lady made the comment about you presenting it in such an idyllic way. Well, to some extent it was, but it was a different time. You know, we all were much more civil in many ways with
Right.
each other than we might, could be, you know, right? But we were, and that's kind of was true for Dover and Philly and Garrettsville, you know, because I know people I grew up with, you know, and it wasn't a perfect world, but you know what, I moved back here after many years away, and I love being here in Dover. You know, I know the people, and I communicate with them, you know, can integrate with them. And back in the day, you know, if you didn't feel comfortable going someplace, you didn't go.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and sometimes you knew you weren't welcome, you know. But we always managed to work our way through the situation. Talking about the school situation, you know. Well, the Dover schools really didn't become integrated until I think it was about 1918 or so, because the blacks didn't want their kids going to a segregated school, so they wouldn't send them there. And finally, the school superintendent said, okay, we're all gonna go to school together. And that's how that happened. And there are many situations like that where we work together, and I'm sure that's what happened in Newcomerstown.
Yeah,
You know, many of the guys in Newcomerstown used to come here to Dover, you know,
right.
and I remember I used to go to Newcomerstown.
What I found out in going to school is life is what you make it. You know, if you try to present yourself as a good person
Yeah,
and try to stay out of trouble and do the right thing. I mean, sports was my big thing, you know.
yeah.
Sports and art, which led me to the career that I had.
I understand, you know, our nephew, Jay Kelper.
Yes, it was right around the corner
Yeah,
from us. Matter of fact, when I started dating my wife, when I saw her at school, we got to talk about different people we know, and
Yeah.
Jay Cutler lived in our same neighborhood.
yeah.
It was kind of funny. But, yeah, life was what you made it, you know. You had good role models and
Yes,
teachers
yeah.
in school, and you took that and you ran with it, you know. You did the best you can to make your family proud, and, you know, it's still part of our neighborhood. And, the drive has had some depletion in houses. I think there's only like 18 original Clow houses left. But you try to instill in young people that, yeah, you can make a difference in life if you
Yes.
just get out there and try. You find out that if one person jumps on the bandwagon, you find out another person is gonna jump on and help you, and then you get a whole group of people moving in the right direction. You know, you can't give up on life. You can't give up on your community, or you shouldn't. You know, try to do something. There's enough trouble out here in the world,
Yeah.
And
you know, with our young people. And, you know, I look back to the day when the drive was full of kids playing up and down the street. Now I think they're all stuck in with their computer.
yeah.
You know, just, this is a different era we live in.
Well, thanks for coming today and,
Yeah.
you know, enlightening us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we learned a lot. I mean, I did.
Yeah.
I'll speak for myself.
I did too.
We learned
I
a
thought I knew
A lot of rich history. There's stuff added onto this I didn't even say, or maybe I forgot. But
Well, and what an important job, passion, to put all that together.
Yeah.
You know, to
Yeah.
keep track of it for future generations to look at it and say, oh, this is what happened. You know, maybe they're not interested at the moment, but they might be interested sometime.
Yes.
And at least we have something now that they can.
I created this brochure that we did years ago. So then a lot of the photos and information came from this, and then I dug in with more information. And I said visually we had to have something that we all can see, so that's why I created
Great.
Yeah.
the PowerPoint. So. Any other questions?